In 1844, Edgar Allan Poe published a short horror story called The Premature Burial, in which the main character suffers from catalepsy, which causes him to enter a state barely distinguishable from death, leading to an obsessive fear of being mistakenly buried alive. The story contains accounts of supposedly real cases of premature burial, and these sorts of stories were quite popular in sensationalist newspapers, penny dreadfuls, and horror novels of the 18th and 19th centuries. The premature burial wasn't even Edgar Allan Poe's only story with a premature burial. You see, in the 18th and 19th centuries, being buried alive was a pretty common fear. George Washington, on his deathbed, demanded he not be buried for at least 2 days after his death, just to make sure he wasn't still alive when they put him underground. And this fear was somewhat well-founded at the time. Before electronic monitoring of the heart or brain, it could be difficult to tell the difference between the dying and the brown bread. If you were in a coma or something, no one was analysing your brain activity, and if you were caught in an outbreak of some horrible disease like cholera, well, people didn't really want to be spending much time hanging around bodies. So if you looked like one, they might have stuck you in the ground lickety-split without the usual checks. Dr. Henry Jacques Garrigues once made the claim that out of every 200 coffins put underground in this country, the occupant of at least one of them is simply in a lethargic state and is buried alive. And so, corresponding with the fears of this time, we see dozens of patents across Europe and the US for inventions known as safety coffins. A safety coffin was a coffin fitted with some sort of mechanism that would allow a victim of premature burial to escape. A promising idea, clearly fertile ground for marketing a very profitable product here, but a lot of the designs were flawed in some terrible way. In 1791, English dissenting minister Robert Robinson was buried according to his own directions, in a coffin with a movable glass pane. His relatives were instructed to visit his grave regularly to see if there was breath on the glass. A tomb with a view. I wonder how long he expected them to keep this up before they were allowed to recover the sight of his decaying face. Similarly, the German Duke Ferdinand of Brunswick left instructions for his burial in 1792. He also had a window installed in his coffin, but he also had the good sense to install a tube to supply air, something a lot of safety coffin designs did not consider. How long do you suppose the air supply in a coffin lasts anyways? A few hours? The Duke's coffin lid was not nailed down, and instead he had a lock on the inside. He was buried with the key. It went unused. A lot of safety coffins had a string or a rope which led to a bell at the surface, so you'd wake up in the coffin and ring the bell, which would alert a night watchman who had hopefully not already tired of the bell sounding in the wind and cut it off. In 1822, one such coffin was demonstrated by German Dr. Adolf Gutsmuth, who spent several hours in it underground. The pipe for the bell string was large enough to also pass food through, and he had a meal of soup, sausages, and even beer. This arrangement sounds preferable to most marriages. Assumedly, this demonstration was ended before the beer made its way to his bladder. In 1829, Dr. Johann Gottfried Tarberger came up with an improvement for this design. Strings for the bell would be tied to the hands, head, and feet, so any movement at all would sound the bell. And this bell had a special housing that prevented it from being rung accidentally. It also stopped rainwater from entering, which was an oversight in other designs. The housing also had netting that was supposed to stop bugs crawling into the pipe and becoming beneficiaries of a coffin they did not pay for. Some safety coffins had cords attached to a flag which would be raised to alert passers-by rather than a bell, but anything where strings or wires were attached to a corpse had the same problem. Corpses decompose, gases build up, flesh rots away, and bodies can swell or shift, meaning the "oh my god, I've been buried alive, help me quickly" alarm could be raised by an honest-to-goodness rotting stinking cadaver. Nowhere was this problem more accentuated than in this 1843 design for a spring-loaded coffin, in which the slightest movement from within would cause the lid to fly open. Horrific. Some designs featured neither bell nor flag nor spring-operated remains revealer, but a simple tube through which a buried person could call out for help. If I was a watchman in a cemetery at night and I heard the distorted cries of a recently buried person emanating from their grave, I would not be sauntering over to investigate. I don't even believe in ghosts or anything supernatural like that. I'm just a coward. Another proposal for tubes sticking out of a coffin was so an observer could smell the odours coming from inside. If the rancid stench of putrefaction radiated from the pipe, then everything was alright. It was only when you weren't bowled over by a powerful smell that you knew something had gone horribly wrong. Not every safety coffin was designed permitting the dead to terrorise the living. Wildwood Cemetery in Pennsylvania features a burial vault with escape hatches. Each is padded on the inside, so you won't hurt yourself if you shot up suddenly. Now that's thoughtful. They also feature air ducts, so you wouldn't suffocate, and there's a handwheel you can turn to escape. Franz Wester's 1869 burial case had an attachable tube which held a little ladder for you to literally climb up out of the grave. If you hadn't the strength, the tube also had the horrible window and bell features, but the tube could be removed once death was confirmed, and even reused. Today, you can actually still get safety coffins with everything you would expect from modern technology. Alarms, intercom systems, oxygen supplies, heart monitors. But the popularity of the safety coffin is not what it was a couple hundred years ago. As mentioned in the beginning, advances in medical care mean it's unlikely you're going to be declared dead while not dead, outside of a Cambodian prison hospital or something. And there is also the practice of embalming, which no one has ever survived. Oh, and there was never any documented cases of somebody being saved by a safety coffin anyway. So if you watched this video hoping to assuage your taphophobia, sorry, I guess you'll just have to consider cremation. You should also consider watching some of my other videos. In a couple of them, people are literally buried alive. But I've got hundreds of videos where that doesn't happen as well. You can subscribe to see more in the future, and until next time, stay safe. Assumedly, this administration, the housing also had netting that was supposedly... Some safety coffins had cords attached to a flag, which would... No. Some safety coffins... Fuck, okay.